I'll know
You're live.
ability to do it.
Well, welcome everyone. It's so good to see you here for our monthly program for Stafford County Historical Society. I have absolutely no new announcements this evening, so we're going to get straight into it. Jane Connor, our Vice President, will do the introductions.
Well, we're so happy that you're all here and those at home are watching too. Before we begin and having Ms. Hagler talk, we're going to be given the history of Juneteenth by the Reverend Hashbell Turner.
Good evening, everyone, and I'm delighted to be in your presence this afternoon. The uniform that I have on is chaplain for the 23rd Infantry Regiment of the United States Colored Troops. So when we start thinking about Juneteenth, we have to roll the calendar back just a little bit, because the United States Colored Troops serving with the Union Army, and actually the ones that won the Civil War. And so as we move toward Juneteenth, which is a celebration to free those that were still enslaved down in Galveston, Texas. But before we get there, we have to be mindful of the United States Colored Troops, and this is the chaplain of the United States Colored Troops. Many of the soldiers were injured, many had deaths, many needed assistance administratively. So the chaplain's role was so very important to assist in getting those things done. So we think about Juneteenth, and many of you have heard about it, and thinking that all of a sudden that General Order Number 3 was read down in Galveston, Texas. Well, before you get to Texas, there have to be some things that transpired in order for the troops to arrive there. So a few weeks ago, Mr. Hickler and myself and Mr. White, we were able to go down to City Point, down where Hopewell, Virginia is, and at that particular time on March 25th, 1865, thousands of troops, Union troops, boarded steamships headed to Texas and the Mexican border. While they were en route, a terrible storm came up. So they had to divert over to Galveston, Texas, and to disembark and to pick up supplies. So when they arrived in Galveston, Texas, they realized that there were still people that were still enslaved there, because it seems like the word had not reached them that 2.5 years prior to that, the Emancipation Proclamation had been signed by President Abraham Lincoln. Now, why the word never reached them in 2.5 years seems to be a mystery to some, but it's not a mystery to me, because they wanted to continue on with the labor, and they were on an island where there was not a lot of publicity that took place, so they got away with it. Possibly in some other areas too, that they continued on to hold our people enslaved. So it just so happened that when the troops disembarked there in Galveston and realized that there were those that were still enslaved, they wanted to make sure that the word got to everyone, that the Emancipation Proclamation covered them, that they were to be set free also. So they approached General Gordon Granger with the matter, and of course he was willing to go ahead and write up General Order Number 3. And I have that that I will read in your hearing. My memory is not what it used to be. I'm getting on up there in the years, so sometimes I have to make sure that I have a cheat sheet with me so that I can cover some of the information. General Order Number 3 was read. General Order Number 3, Headquarters District, Texas. Galveston, Texas, June 19, 1865. The people of Texas are informed that, in accordance with the proclamation from the Executive of the United States, all slaves are free. I usually correct that statement because our people weren't enslaved, they were enslaved. And I like to set that record straight to get people's understanding clear on that. Now, this involves all absolute equality of personal rights and rights of property between former masters and enslaved. And the connection, therefore, existing between them becomes that between the employer and the hired labor. The freemen are advised to remain quietly at their present homes and work for wages. They're informed that they will not be allowed to collect a military post and that they will not be supported in idleness either there or anywhere else. And by order of Major General Gordon Granger, submitted by F.W. Emory, Major and Assistant Adjutant General. Now, even though the Emancipation Proclamation had been in effect for 2.5 years, sad to say that this did not reach Galveston, Texas. But once those soldiers found out and they got General Order Number 3 executed, they were willing to go from door to door and nail it up on the churches so that those that did not have the information have the information at that time. So the first celebration took place there on June 19, 1865. You can imagine when the people found out that they were free, the celebration that must have really moved on the hearts of so many people. And so from that time forward, Juneteenth. How many of you in here know how they derived at the name Juneteenth? Yes, sir. Can you tell us?
Well, it was June, and it was the June 19th, and they just took the, it said Juneteenth,
Right.
rather than June 19th. That
Right.
was sort of the lingo of the time.
Mm-hmm. So in case you didn't know, the slogan that I like to use, now you know. All right? So you can share that with others. That's how we derived at Juneteenth. As I was stating earlier, the United States colored troops had such an important role in that, because when the Emancipation Proclamation was signed on January 1st, 1863. But before then, many of you attend church, and I'm sure you're familiar with Watch Night service, which takes place December 31st. Well, that was the first Watch Night celebration that took place was in December 31st, 1862. Those folks were ready. The word had reached them that the Emancipation Proclamation was signed, and that on January 1st, they would be free. And so that was an exciting time for them, and that's why we honor Watch Night even up to today. And many of those that were enslaved were willing to put on the blue uniform and join the Union Army. Over 10,000 crossed over from the Rappahannock side of Fredericksburg over here to the south side, down near where Moncure Conway's place is there at the Rappahannock. They were excited, moved northward, and many of them landed close to the D.C. area. The 23rd Infantry Regiment of the United States Colored Troops was formed up at Camp Casey, which is present-day the Pentagon area. Now, many of them joined the Army, and others were just like Frank White is seated here in this outfit. They were contraband, and so they worked as laborers for the Union camp. And many of them started out as contraband, and then they decided to put on the uniform. We try to get Frank to put on 20% every year, right? But he said he even got the years to come up on him now, so he's not eligible for enlistment. So he goes along with us as contraband man, and so he fills in when we have troop strength that is short, and we have parades, and we need somebody to carry the colors. We can count on contraband man, Frank. So. But that is pretty much the essence of our celebration and get into history of Juneteenth involved. And we're so excited because Sister Eunice and I and Frank and John, we've been participating in a Juneteenth celebration in Fredericksburg for a number of years. Frank has on the first T-shirt where the first observance and celebration took place in Fredericksburg in 2006. And so Ms. Hagler and myself and others, we've been carrying the legacy forward until she reached the State House, and then she took it from the local side of it and got it on the state side of making things happen and be celebrated, and then we moved forward from there to when President Biden signed off, and it was a federal holiday, and so some of you that would be working on Monday will be off this coming Monday. I think I would look around the room, and some folks are still working. Many of us are not working. We're just, every day is a holiday now that we've retired. So, but that is what I wanted to share with you this evening, and I will take some questions if that's appropriate later on. Okay. No, we can't go.
Thank you so much, Reverend Turner.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Well, let me tell you a little bit about tonight's speaker. Eunice Hagler retired as a mental health professional, and she became, after her retirement, she became a historian, an activist, a community liaison for former Commonwealth of Virginia State Legislator Joshua Cole. And she found out that Juneteenth was not celebrated in the state of Virginia. So it took her 7 years, and on October the 13th, 2020, Governor Ralph Northam proclaimed Juneteenth a legal statewide holiday due to Ms. Hagler's hard work and prayers. So now let me introduce you to the person that made Juneteenth a state holiday in Virginia.
So what happened was the unit, I was part of an organization called Virginia Organizing, and the Unitarian Church reached out to us because they had lost all of their diversity, and they wanted to bring diversity back into their congregation. And so out of that, we developed the Race Coalition of Fredericksburg. And I've been in many groups like this in Detroit and New Jersey, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just not going to be part of this group. I look for some sustainability. What can I do to leave a legacy for my children, my grandchildren, and my great-grandchildren? And so after researching, I found out, this was in 2014, I found out that the next year was going to be the 150th anniversary of Juneteenth. Wow, that's sustainability. I reached out to the National Juneteenth Association, and FIC wanted to know what I could do towards its end. They sent me the petitions. I had to have people sign petitions, and at any event that we had. So when I had to take my request to the board of the Fredericksburg Race Coalition, and I wanted this done by a black person. I really wanted to be it to become from my soul, our soul. I was the only black person there. So what I did, I reached out to, and it was just a magnificent thing. Everybody I reached out to said yes. The pastor at New City Fellowship came to Virginia to make his church diverse. He said yes. Everybody that I asked a historian who does a wonderful Harriet Tubman reenactment. We went down into behind the old Walker Grant. There was a tent city where the homeless lived. We went there. We had clothes. We gave them tents. We had food. Everybody I reached out to was a yes. So you need money, right? My budget was zero. fellowship, it was $200. The pastor waived it every year. We invited different groups. We had national artists come. We had gospel programs. We had the Unitarian choir, the bells. We had so much entertainment and so much food. And it was a unity thing. There was no color lines. Everybody pitched in and helped together. It was unity in the community. And so one of my friends, Jason from the Unitarian Church, said, this is a young man I want you to meet. He's magnificent. I said, okay. I called him up, and when I called him up, I could hear the smile, the love in his voice. That was Josh Cole. So on the day of our next event, I was sitting there, and you always worry about if people are coming. And so I didn't see him. I'm like, okay. So then I'm standing, and he comes over, and he said, oh, hi, I'm Josh Cole. He looked like he was 14 years old. So I said, oh, hi. And so what he did acapella. He did old school spirituals. And I can't sing, so I'm not going to try to do that. But it was a wonderful event. And so then Josh and I, we just started trying to figure out things in the community that needed change. Things in the community that we could make a difference at. Then one day he came to me, he said, I think I'm going to run for state council. I said, okay. And, he's kind of moaning on me. Okay. And so finally one day he said, I'm going to do it. I'm like, okay. And so he ran the first year we did not win. So what impressed me was the night when we had when we went to see who voted, and I was sitting there and we found out that we did not win. He walked over to me, he said, we'll do this again. He doesn't remember saying that, but that's what he did. So the next year we did it again and we won. We went to Richmond. One of the first bills that he put forth was making Juneteenth a state holiday. Now, it had been done before. Some other legislators had done it before. And so unfortunately it did not pass, because when you put in a bill, there's certain legal language that we have to adhere to, and so that didn't happen. And so Governor Northam called him and said, I understand that you put in for a Juneteenth celebration. And he said, yeah. He explained why. He said, okay, we'll bring it back next session, which would have been the following year. But then that would have put our first celebration for Juneteenth. The following, he said, no, he said, bring it back, special session. I'll make sure that it passes. He did, and he did. And so we have this holiday. So it was funny because I was doing an interview on the phone with a reporter from NBC, and I didn't know that I was doing an interview, so I'm laid all back, answering questions and stuff. And so I got this message: Juneteenth is a national holiday. And I just started screaming. And he said, how do you feel? How do you feel? I don't know how I feel. But this is a step. This is our celebration. Because I promise you, on Independence Day, my ancestors were busy that day. And like my cousin said, now we can celebrate Juneteenth. And so we're going to have a celebration on Saturday. I have done what I set out to do. I wanted to be a state holiday. I wanted to be a national holiday. It was not alone. It was by a lot of work with people. But what I don't want us to lose the meaning. I don't want us to lose the spirit of the blood, sweat, tears, and struggle of our ancestors. And so that's just what I hope, that it does not become so commercialized that we lose the essence of it. And so yes, I've turned my baby. My baby's gone through infancy. It's gone through being a toddler. It's gone through childhood. And so now it's time for maturity. And so on Saturday at that stadium, you will see the product of that maturity. I hope you guys come out. I thank you. And
it's
happy
free.
Juneteenth.
It's free.
Oh. It's free?
It's free.
Yeah, so you can go in the stadium free.
Yeah. So thank you and happy Juneteenth.
It's not at 2 o'clock.
You're saying,
Okay, so you want to tell.
you're
motivate.
Yeah, I know, but it's going to be at the Nest Stadium from 2 until 8:30. Our intention is to stay there until dark so that we can set off a grand fireworks display, just like it's done on 4th of July. We want ours to be not second to the 4th of July celebration, but we want ours to be one that's definitely going to be remembered. So come on out, bring your kids, tell your neighbors. That there's a lot of fun activities for the young people. History is going to be taught, entertainment is going to be there, and then the fireworks. We'll close it out. I know, clap your hands. So I didn't introduce myself earlier. A lot of times I do that before I finish out. But I am Pastor Ashmel Turner, Assistant Pastor at First Mount Zion Baptist Church in downtown Sparta. I served on the Fredericksburg City Council for 2 terms, from 2002 until 2010. I'm also the past president of the Fredericksburg branch of NAACP in Fredericksburg, the past president of the Mayfield Civic Association where I live, and I currently serve as the chaplain and the color guard sergeant for the 23rd Infantry Regiment of the United States Colored Troops. And we have a mission to tell the untold story, because I had attended schools here in the state of Virginia 12 years. Never had I heard about the United States Colored Troops serving in the Civil War under the Union Army. I did not know about this until the movie Glory came out in 1989. From then forward, it keened my curiosity and my interest to find out more about this and have a willingness to tell the untold story.
So next up is, I got a lot of cousins here, so you know I'm kind of proud. I have my cousin John White. I have my cousin Bernard White. I have my cousin Hashmo Turner. And I have my cousin Frank White. So I don't know how many people know that Frank is a poet. And so Frank wrote a poem some time ago, a Juneteenth poem some time ago, and he read it. So the piece, we didn't know the piece about City Point at that time. And, you know, it was 23,000, they said between 18 and 23,000 black troops descending on Galveston, Texas. That's a lot of black folks. And so Frank went back and revised his poem, and so I'm sure I can get him to come and read that poem.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Before I read the poem, let me say a couple of things. I first heard about Juneteenth in June of 1958. And the reason why I heard of Juneteenth in June of 1958, I was a young airman stationed at Lackland Air Force Base, San Antonio, Texas. And about the middle of June, one guy said, "Look, we have a holiday coming up in a couple of days." I said, "Yes, 4th of July." He said, "No, Juneteenth." Juneteenth? What's Juneteenth? I never heard of Juneteenth. He said something about freeing the slaves. So that weekend, I went downtown to get a haircut, and I was talking to the barber, and he was a Texan. He told me all about Juneteenth and Galveston, Texas. First I've heard of Juneteenth. That was in 1958. The next time I heard of Juneteenth was about 2005. And about that time, the Netta schools and normal schools had what they called the Montague Conway Foundation. And what they were doing, they wanted to put out Juneteenth. So they put out the first regional Juneteenth in June 2006. Back in the back is a plaque they got from the state, and also some photos about the event. It was a 3-day event. It was regional from Fredericksburg, Pennsylvania, Stafford, King George, and Caroline. All of them were involved in that event. and it was really a grand event. A lot of people was involved.
Mr. White, that's on your T-shirt. It was the Rappahannock Regional Juneteenth.
Oh, yeah, I was a staff member. And I want to say, Rappahannock, 2006.
Show the back.
It's on the back of your shirt.
What's on the back of your
Oh, okay.
your bench stand? Okay.
And this was a shirt that they gave me back in 2006, so you're kind of old now.
I have mine too.
You got yours too? But anyway, let me, I did some research on Juneteenth also. I'm gonna read what I found, just one little word, one little sentence here. Said, as the Confederacy began losing the war, Texas became a refuge for enslavers to keep those they had enslaved. Texas was the westernmost Confederate state and one with little U.S. Army presence, since there was little fighting there. More than 150,000 enslaved people were forced to move to Texas. And this was taken from the United States, information from the United States. Now, you mentioned the fact that I did write a poem on Juneteenth, and I had something that was, I found something out. So, but this was written, several years ago, except the one little part that changed last couple weeks ago when I found out about people going from City Point down to Galveston. And it says, a Texas Juneteenth epic poem. Mr. Thomas Jefferson wrote in 1776, words which have survived for ages, addressing a problem to fix. All men are created equal, were his words to the British Crown, but the way you have treated us has caused us to do more than frown. So, the call is for the war, with General Washington leading. Everyone knows the end results. Collins won, British fled. But then Thomas Jefferson's words were cast aside, put on a shelf. They only applied to those men who looked like Jefferson himself. So slavery kept on keeping them in this lane called the USA. The issue had to be resolved another time, another day. Then in 1861, Abe Lincoln was the president. War broke out between North and South. Now, guess what that was all about? An issue of human control had once more risen to the top. Abe Lincoln told his staff and aides, this war and slavery got to stop. Abe wrote a famous document willing to set many slaves free. The first day of the first month of the year, 1863. Emancipation Proclamation was the name of that document, but some folks did not get the word until long after it was sent. Like all those folks in southern states, hoping one day to be free. Many did not get their freedom until the surrender of Lee. Members of the 21st U.S. Army Corps on May 25, 1865, boarded steamship at City Point, Virginia, for a long boat ride. They were headed to the Long Star State, carrying news for a minority race. The war was over, slaves were free, though they were encouraged to remain in place. June 19, 1865, by General Order Number 3, slaves in Galveston got the word. The war was over, they were free. Those enslaved remember that day. They celebrated far and wide. And Juneteenth is what they called it, celebrating that day with pride. Thank you.
All right, sir.
Yes, sir.
I have a question about General Granger. When I first started learning about Juneteenth, some of the books that I read and articles, he was almost treated like a hero. So it's interesting now to hear that there's more to that story.
Yes, sir.
And that he did not necessarily act on his own volition, but was kind of forced into it. Is that what we're learning?
Not that he was forced into it, but it could not have happened if those colored troops had not been there to reinforce that
is something that I'd heard, but we really got more into it a couple of weeks ago when we went down to City Point. And you're correct, Granger had been pretty much put up on the shelf as a hero about it because the whole story had not been told. But when you look at it starting back on the 25th of May in 1865 when they boarded the steamships. And they weren't going to Galveston. They were on their way to Texas and the Mexican border because of the uprisings and things that were taking place there. But the storm came up and they had to veer off to Galveston Island, and that's when they found out that they were still enslaved.
And that small piece of history about City Point takes it out of Granger and gives it back to us. So it makes it our story. Any more questions? Yes, ma'am.
I hadn't known anything about this, and I started reading about it, and even when they did give them their freedom, they still really weren't free because they changed laws, and they would say, okay, you were jaywalking, so we're going to imprison you, and then, they just made them do slave gang labor.
It's just evolved.
They still didn't have their freedom, and they constantly made rules and laws that kept them enslaved, even though they were supposed to be free. So it's eye-opening. And then you talk about Thomas Jefferson. I just read a book on the 3 daughters of Thomas Jefferson, and he had a lot of children with Sally Hennings, and even with his daughter, he was supposed to have given her papers when she left. He wouldn't give her papers for freedom. He gave her $50, put her on a stagecoach, and was trying to send her to Missouri. She got off the stagecoach in D.C. They really lost track of her. But it was amazing how he treated even his own children that were of mixed race. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I first heard of Juneteenth in 1962. I was out in California, but I had a lot of friends out there from Louisiana and Texas. And they said, we're going to celebrate Juneteenth. I want you to come over for dinner. And I'd never heard of Juneteenth. I didn't know what they were talking about. But I got to eat things like gumbo. Don't know if you've ever had, they call it a seafood gumbo. Shrimp, and they call it crawfish, yeah, all that. And, it was really good, and that's what I remembered most about it, and I found out about it. I was educated then how they were free. And with that big meal, if you've never had gumbo, you may want to get some of that seafood gumbo.
Making me hungry, don't be. Making me hungry,
Yeah, I'll tell you.
Over rice.
Over rice.
Yeah, you had rice.
That's right.
Yes, ma'am.
I just would like to make a comment while we recognizing people. Frank White first got traction here in this organization. He'd been writing his poetry a long, long time.
That's
It
right.
has quite a collection. But he went from first reading to our group to reading at many other venues, including the co-op over in Fredericksburg. Friday night, was it, Frank? Had a good crowd that got lots of good applause. And I think the value not only of Frank's work as history, it's the fact that there are feelings and emotions and a pride where he held his head high that's imbued in those words that are now encased in the future.
And he has a book.
That's right.
Oh yes, I know.
Well, I would like to really celebrate my 3 cousins, John, Frank, and Bernard, for 82 years
Yeah, but my dad.
Yeah, service in the military. That was not an easy feat, and so I celebrate them anyway because they're my cousins. You know, are there any other questions? Yes, sir.
I'm fascinated by Juneteenth.
I know that is the right voice.
I'm fascinated by this holiday and the topic because it seems like we're still learning so much about it.
Right.
You know, is there somewhere where you can direct folks to keep up on the latest scholarship or writings, or is there a book that you would recommend that we can read and get a complete picture?
To be honest, we're just getting the complete picture.
Yeah.
Our stories have not been widely told. Bits and pieces have been given to us, and we've got a kind of piece, and we get like that whole piece of City Point. I didn't know that. The event that they had at Old Mill Park, I knew it was a big 3-day celebration. I didn't know it was a Juneteenth celebration. So what we're trying to do now is put all these pieces together so that we can have one place where you can go and get information.
But you're keeping it alive through oral history.
Yes, ma'am.
That is supremely important.